Hello, everyone, and welcome back to MS Neuro TV, brought to you by MS Views and News. My name is Jennifer Falk, and I am the Director of Development over at MS Views and News. And I am here tonight with Bill Shanley, who's our Productions Manager.
How you doing?
Hi, Bill. Hey, great. So just to give you guys a little bit of information, MS Views and News is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing education, information, and resources to the multiple sclerosis community. And before we continue, we would like to say thank you to our supporters, Celgene and Sanofi Genzyme, and viewers like you for making educational programs like tonight possible. Tonight, we're very excited to have Mindy Eisenberg, who is an expert yoga instructor, and she is our guest speaker tonight. She will be sharing with us her expertise on yoga, incorporating yoga into our lives, and the use of movement, yoga, and breath to help us on a daily basis. So I feel like it's important for me to introduce Mindy to you and give you some of her background, which is quite impressive. Mindy Eisenberg has been a student of yoga for over 25 years and is a certified yoga therapist and qualified mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher. She is the founder and director of Yoga Moves MS, which is a nonprofit 501c3 organization where she serves those with MS and mobility challenges through the provision of yoga therapy for over a decade. Mindy has been on a quest for over 14 years to improve and maintain the quality of life for individuals living with multiple sclerosis. Her inspiration is ignited every time she sees her students light up from the tiny miracles that happen in the yoga room. Mindy's playful, creative, and healing approach focuses on adapting yoga for each individual. At the urging of her students, Mindy authored the book, Adaptive Yoga Moves Anybody, created for individuals living with multiple sclerosis and neuromuscular conditions. This book is a resource gleaned from her years of experience and study with some of the most renowned and talented yoga therapists in the world. Mindy presents nationally to yoga instructors and therapists and to the MS community. Her mission is to build a supportive Yoga Moves MS network throughout the country. She has a master's degree in health services administration from the University of Michigan and was a healthcare administrator at the University of Michigan Medical Center for over 7 years, which helps her build her relationships with professionals and clinicians in the field of neurology. So we're very happy to have Mindy joining us tonight, and it's going to be a very interesting talk. And before we continue, I'd like to start playing a special video interview with Mindy. After that video is done playing, we will be live with Mindy for questions and answers with all of you. So if you have questions that pop in your mind while you are watching this interview, feel free to type them into the right-hand corner of your screen where you see the orange arrow. And don't worry, your questions remain anonymous. Only I can see them, and I will relay them to Mindy in the order that they're received. Okay, and so now we're going to start to play our interview. TV, presented by MS Views and News. MS Neuro TV is a comprehensive educational program bringing together MS professionals from across the United States covering the topics that you want to learn more about. To register for MS Neuro TV webinars, visit www.msviewsandnews.org. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the program. Can you share with us your personal connection to multiple sclerosis?
So my personal connection with MS is that I grew up with a mother who was diagnosed with primary progressive MS, and it moved very fast, but through high school I lived with her in our house, and then when I graduated she ended up going to a nursing home, and she was there for over 25 years.
What is different about yoga for multiple sclerosis?
So yoga for multiple sclerosis essentially has the same type of goal or benefits, that people feel better after they do it. They may be stronger, more flexible, feeling more body awareness, maybe less pain. But it's adaptive yoga. We use props so that the individual who's practicing, who might have MS, can experience the pose. It might look slightly different, but the same kind of energy is coming out of the pose. No matter whether you have MS or not, the adaptive yoga is helping the body fit the pose rather than pushing the body into the pose.
So what do you recommend in terms of frequency for someone living with MS to reap the full benefits of adaptive yoga?
So of course practice, if it's done on a daily basis, you're going to see different benefits and more benefit. Someone who practices once a week, they're going to feel good when they leave. Someone who practices 2 times a week, you see even more benefit. So we have to start with where a person is at, though. If they've never done yoga, they might start with 1 time. When they start to notice that they feel better, they might up it to 2 or 3 or 4 times a week.
What are the specific benefits of yoga for people who are living with multiple sclerosis?
So the benefits for someone who has MS when they practice yoga is very similar to others who practice yoga. But there might be more emphasis, so they might notice that their balance perhaps is better. It's very, for someone who doesn't have MS and has MS, they might feel that it's more of a coping mechanism for stress.
What if a student thinks that they are not flexible and cannot do yoga?
So that's a very common comment. Well, you should try yoga. Well, I'm not flexible, I can't do that. But the reality is, that's the perfect candidate because they're going to feel better from stretching. It's not about taking your foot behind your head. It's about feeling better and lengthening areas that often become spastic and contracted from conditions like MS.
What if a student feels fearful to go from the chair down to the mat? Is that okay?
That's absolutely okay to practice in a chair at first, or do standing postures, and then very often when people or students with MS see other students going down, they then go, oh, if well they do it, I can do it, and it actually becomes empowering because they know that if they do fall, they can get back up again. So very often students say that it's one of the most powerful things that they learned in class was learning how to go down and how to get back up again. We never force students. It's at their pace when they're feeling ready. And they should never do it alone. There should be someone there who can support them.
What if a student experiences pain while practicing yoga? Should they push through the pain?
So we tell our students, no pain, all gain. There should not be pain. One of the things that students learn from practicing yoga is how to differentiate maybe a dull discomfort from acute pain. So this becomes more of an awareness. And very often from the practice of yoga, pain decreases. But there should be no pain, there should be no pushing. And this is also something that the practice of yoga teaches us not to push. We go before our edge as opposed to going over the edge.
I've heard that yoga rooms are very hot. What is the average temperature of a yoga room?
Different types of yoga have different temperatures in the room. So there are types of yogas where the power yoga or the Bikram yoga, the temperature of the room can be anywhere from 85 to close to 100 degrees. This is not the type of yoga that is recommended for somebody with MS. In our Yoga Moves classes, the temperature is around 70, 72.
How can someone find an adaptive yoga teacher in their community?
So to find an adaptive yoga teacher, they can check with their local studios, but there's also organizations called the International Association of Yoga Therapists, and so they have the resource, and you can look up by state and what type of training the instructor has. There's also the Yoga Alliance that lists any yoga instructor who's a registered yoga teacher. Someone who teaches adaptive yoga, though, should have at least a few years teaching and have some experience, be mentored by other instructors so that they can help somebody in the right way in a safe area.
What qualifications should a yoga teacher or therapist have?
So an experienced yoga teacher should have at least the registered yoga teacher 200 and at least a few years experience so that they know what to look for in somebody's body, but they really should be trained because we're working with people who have conditions where they might be slightly more vulnerable, and we want to make sure that the environment is safe. That is the first priority.
Can yoga be practiced at home? What would somebody need to have at hand?
So to practice yoga at home, you actually don't have to go out and buy fancy clothes or props. You can use things around the house. For instance, a comfortable but yet sturdy chair, maybe even a folding chair, can be used for practice at home. So chair yoga. We use yoga straps in the yoga room, but a belt from a robe could work just the same. So at first I recommend not necessarily buying anything. Yoga mats are pretty easy to find in many different types of department stores or online, very easy to find them. And we don't have to start with some fancy yoga mat. It could be a basic mat. So if they want resources, we have a book that shows pictures with easy directions and also videos that they can find.
Do you recommend care partners getting involved or helping with yoga practice at home?
So I think it's a good idea, and caregivers should be welcomed to help. So it's ideal if the caregiver is familiar with yoga, if they've practiced it, so they know the poses. They might practice together, take a few classes where they're together, and then at home, it's ideal for a caregiver or a care partner to help the practitioner or the student at home. We can't always lift an arm or a leg or reach for the strap or the block, and that's where a care partner can be a great resource and assistant.
Okay, everybody, and that was a great interview, and I am so impressed that so many of you are on the line and engaged in the questions already. So now's your time. If you haven't started typing in your questions for Mindy, you can go ahead and type them. I can see them coming in as you type, and I'm going to try to get to as many questions as possible tonight. We're excited to hear from you, and we want you to be able to learn as much as you can tonight on this webinar. And please remember, and I say this every month, if you're new, you haven't heard me say this yet, but no question is silly. Every question is an opportunity to learn, not only for you, but for the hundreds of people who are on the line and who will be watching this in the future. It can help a lot of people. So the only thing I ask is that you try to keep our questions related to tonight's topic, which is yoga. And yeah, we'll get started with our questions and answers. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mindy to join us tonight.
I'm very excited to be here.
Hi, Mindy. How are you? Great. Thanks for being with us.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Great. I'm going to start with some questions that have come in. The first question that I have is, and this actually was sent to me today during the day, so this person has priority because it's first come, first serve. I used to practice when I was ambulatory. I am now in a wheelchair full time. What can I do to loosen my muscles?
So no matter what, no matter your abilities, your range of abilities, you can still do yoga. And there's chair yoga that you can do. You also can do yoga in bed. So lots of poses like cat-cow that you may be familiar with since you practice yoga can be done in the chair. It can be done in bed as a pelvic tilt, or it can be on hands and knees as you have traditionally seen it. There's all kinds of things people like to do, like keep a strap by the bedside or next to their chair. And sometimes it's helpful to have a care partner with you to help you as well. Okay, great. So in bed, from bed, you can do poses from a chair or on the floor. Yeah. Yeah. So you want to make sure if you're going on the floor that you know that you can get back up, of course. And I don't recommend it for anyone unless they have assistance there and it's safe for them to do so. But very often people can practice either before they go to sleep or when they get up in the morning. It's very helpful to do a few stretches before even getting out of bed. And then it's a nice way to wind down. And the more frequent that we do this and we build this into our day, the more we can feel the benefit. Okay, great. Thank you. And it kind of leads into the next person's question, which is similar with saying, I'm not able to get on the floor without much effort. Can you solely practice yoga in a chair without ever getting onto the floor? It's very surprising for people, but when they try chair yoga, they see that it's very effective. It can really help you stretch. There's so much that can be done in the chair. Sometimes people feel like they get more out of the chair than they do in other types of positions. So I highly recommend trying it. Oh, that's great. Okay. Someone is thanking you, Mindy, for bringing this new experience to our audience. And the question is in relation to speed. Is there such thing as going slow that might be too slow? You know, we always adjust to our body, and that's one thing that yoga teaches us. Too slow, I don't know if that really exists, but I think what happens is we adjust based on our mood, how our body feels at the time. I don't think you can go too slow. As long as you're breathing and you use the breath as a way, as an edge detector to tell you whether you're moving too fast. But moving slowly can build strength. So there's real benefit in moving slow, and of course there's some benefit in moving fast, but I always say err on the safe side. What we're looking for is safe yoga practice, safe stretching, safe moving. So slow, I wouldn't focus so much on speed as really feeling the sensation of the poses. That's what we're really after, is what are you feeling in your body? Because yoga is about the mind-body connection. That's what we're going for, to really connect in when I move, what do I feel? When I put my body or arm in this position, how do my ribs feel? How is my breath?
And somebody is asking in regard, this leads into the next question of how do I feel? How do you work with people who feel extreme fatigue but still want to work with yoga?
So I recommend building pauses in. Try a pose and then take a break. And before, and say, do I need a break? You know, even look at your breath, do an assessment, because this is becoming your practice, or can I do another pose? There's different philosophies out there. The most traditional one is don't push past the fatigue. So do a pose, then kind of see, where am I at? We don't want to fatigue you anymore. On the other hand, there's a balance, because movement can be energizing. And so we have people who say, I'm not going to practice for a day, but then they realize if they do come to class that they feel so much better, or if they do their practice, they feel better. So there's a little bit of, you know, taking yourself to the place of movement and practice, and then backing off when you notice the fatigue is getting intense. And the new philosophy is to push to that edge. They call it HIIT, high intensity. And it's not really yoga, but related to exercising for people with MS. We just heard them talking about it to a consortium meeting about maybe pushing into that intensity point and then taking a break at an interval. I have always been of the opinion that we do not want to go to the point of extreme fatigue. It's okay to be a little tired, but you want the practice to be more energizing for you, unless, of course, you're doing a restorative practice, which is a whole nother story, because restorative yoga is a way, just by the name, restorative helps us build energy by first relaxing, renewing, refreshing in some poses that we do for a while. For instance, legs up the wall pose or legs down a chair pose can be wonderful and energizing. Doing a twist and holding it for a while lying on the floor in bed can be a way to relax and start getting the body moving, but yet not fatiguing. It's actually energizing.
Excellent. Thank you.
That was a long answer.
No, but it's a good answer. So it's really tuning into the body and really listening to the body, not going over the edge with fatigue. So really noticing where you are in your movements. And
sometimes that very movement will bring some energy in to someone who's really, really fatigued. And then we can tailor our practice based on how we're feeling that day. So if it is extreme fatigue, we certainly don't want to go into a high intensity yoga practice, but we could take on more of a restorative practice.
Okay, thank you. And I have questions of people asking similar questions. So what book do you recommend for chair yoga? And I do have some resources on the screen here if anybody wants to take a picture of these resources. I know that Yoga Moves MS is here, and I know you can locate Mindy's book through this website here, www.yogamovesms. Is there any other books that you recommend specifically for chair yoga, Mindy?
You know, the book I have has pretty much all the chair yoga poses in it. There are a few other books out there. You can Google chair yoga, and I'm sure you're going to find some that come up. I don't know any specifically off the top of my head. We tried to assimilate as much as we knew and did practice in class, and there's quite a lot in there. So if you do get my book, then you might want to tab certain pages, for some of the chair poses that you enjoy.
Okay, great.
And together with that, we've partnered with some videos, so that also can be helpful because some people learn by video and some learn by a book.
Wonderful. That's my next question. There's 2 more people asking about videos or where they can get examples through video so that they can access that through Yoga Moves MS as well.
Yeah, through the website. So the videos match the sequences in the back of the book. So for instance, there is a yoga in the bed sequence. There's a yoga for, restoring and renewing that's in there just because we were just talking about those 2 very topics. There's yoga for spasticity, and any of these sequences can be practiced in a chair or on the earth, so they can tailor it to their body.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, and thanks for providing that resource to the community. That's amazing. You mentioned yoga for spasticity. There's a question here. How long might it take before I see the benefit for a stiff body? How long would it take for me to see a more loose body or less stiffness?
Yes. So spasticity is a constant, and yoga can help spasticity. And the answer is the more that you stretch, the more you're going to feel in terms of an impact on the spasticity. So once a week, you might feel good right after that, but the body's going to go back. And really the answer is, if you want to feel the impact, then you might need to do it at least once to even 3 times a day or more to really feel it and to get the body more supple. So I would go, but you can't, I always look for balance because it has to be realistic to what do you think you can do. So building it into your routine, just like brushing your teeth. Stretching before bed, stretching in the morning are 2 obvious times, and maybe another time when if you do take some type of refreshing rest in midday. And people who work at the desk, they can easily keep a strap under there and put that around their foot and stretch the leg out, which is one of my favorites, the leg stretches. And using a tie. It doesn't have to be a fancy yoga tie. It can be a belt that you have from a robe, or a tie that's no longer being used by a man. The men's tie works very well as well. And the point is to do it as much as you can. That's when you will start to notice it. We just did a class the other day where we had people stretch before walking and to kind of notice how does it feel different to stretch and then walk, and students do notice the difference. But it is a constant. It's not something like where you do it once or twice and then you're done. The body is constantly contracting and expanding and contracting and expanding.
Okay, so it's something we incorporate into our lifestyle daily. Great.
Absolutely. It has to become a routine.
Thank you, Mindy. And I have another question. Maybe if you could share with us a personal story that sticks out in your mind from one of your students, or something that might be relatable to our audience tonight.
Sure. The one that always comes up, it's one of the beginning when I first started teaching, in the first few years of teaching yoga for MS. There was a physician, actually, who's a neurologist with MS in my class, and I was asking everybody to move their toes, and she gave me a look like, I'm not moving my toes. I can't move my toes. And we got in this discussion about how we try to focus on what we can do rather what we can't do. And I asked students to even imagine their toes moving without staring at them, without growling at them, because there's a lot of communication that's going from the head all the way down to the toes. That's the farthest way to go for communication. And then one day we were in class and I saw her and she was smiling. I said, "What's going on? Why are you smiling?" She goes, "I just moved my toes." So that was a few months later. So I always say, there are miracles that happen in the body, or that appear like the body is miraculous. And we can never be certain what our capabilities are. At least don't dismiss that anything is possible. So just that whole mind-body connection is so strong. And it may not happen right away, but it's the practice. It's the practice over and over again.
Yeah, thank you, Mindy, for being our connection to the mind-body practice. I think that's really wonderful, and we're really grateful that you're on with us tonight. Thank you again for sharing all of that with us.
I am always happy to share the joy of yoga. We want to see everybody doing it, because the practice is so beautiful, and really, if you ask my students, why do they do it? They say, because I feel better after. I feel better after.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I'd like to thank all of you who are listening and who have become active participants with MS Neuro TV, or if it's your first night, we are hopeful that you'll join us every month, the first Tuesday of the month. In conclusion, I want to thank the entire MS community and our supporters, Sanofi, Genzyme, and Celgene. We'd appreciate it if you could take a quick moment when the webinar is finished. We'd like to ask you to fill out a quick survey that will appear on your screen. Your feedback is extremely important to us, so that we can continue to customize these programs around you. We read your feedback, we learn from the information that you give us, and we want your opinion. So please give it to us. We read it, and we are listening. And for those of you who are curious, next month we're going to continue the mind-body experience, and we're going to be touching on physical therapy and movement with Dr. Ben Thrower. So we hope that you can join us next month. And you'll get reminders through email, and you'll see the dates that will come in for you. You will also be able to watch it through our YouTube Learning channel, which you will get in the follow-up email as well. All MS Neuro TV webinars, including tonight's recording, can be found on the YouTube Learning channel within the next week. Remember to subscribe to that channel and turn on your notifications so you can get alerts on our latest MS video releases. And if you have enjoyed these webinars so far, please visit our website and sign up to receive notifications on our free educational events, which are live and are coming to cities near you. Plus, you'll receive interesting articles on what's new in the world of MS. You can join up by signing up at www.msviewsandnews.org. And remember, guys, to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you come back next month. Thank you. Bye-bye.